are nocturnal animals, so you shouldn't see them during the day. They are very good at swimming and climbing and can travel well over a mile under the cover of darkness. They make their homes from mounds of leaves and twigs, and although one of the nation's most favourite animals, over half of us have never actually seen one. But that is all about to change. Welcome to the wonderful world of hedgehogs. I'm Dylan. Welcome to my garden. It's not really been a place I've spent much time in until the lockdown, but in the past 2 months I've discovered that we have hedgehogs living here, so I've set up 2 night cameras to help me learn more about these lovely prickly creatures. The Erinaceus europaeus, or to you and me, the hedgehog, once thrived with tens of millions in the UK, but in the last century or so their numbers have dropped massively for all sorts of reasons, including use of pesticides, hedgerows being cut, gardens over-tidied and more cars on the road. Now there are probably less than 1 million across the whole country. I recently spoke with Grace Johnson, who is the hedgehog officer at Hedgehog Street, an organisation set up by the People's Trust for Endangered Species and the British Hedgehog Preservation Society. I asked her why she believes hedgehog numbers have declined so much.
It's a lot of different things. So there was a report in 2018 that basically told us that we've lost a half of rural hedgehogs and a third of urban hedgehogs since the millennium. So really sort of steep decline in all areas across the board. And really the reason that there's different levels of decline in different areas is just because they face different threats in different areas. So if you think about the countryside, what we've got these days is a lot of really intense agriculture. So there's fewer hedgerows, there's all these really big fields that only have one plant in, and there's not that kind of shelter and biodiversity that hedgehogs need. And also the use of pesticides is reducing the food for them, which is such a shame. In urban areas, it's more basically the expansion of our towns and cities. There's more and more people, there's more and more houses being built. And it's basically, it's almost kind of fragmenting our landscape. So, there's all these walls and boundaries everywhere, and hedgehogs kind of can't travel as much as they need to. And obviously there's other things that are threats across the board. So things like roadkill that happens in cities and in the countryside. But a lot of what it is habitat loss. It's, they need, they're quite a generalist species. They can live in a lot of different areas. But sadly, the amount of suitable areas is declining because of, human development.
Later, I'm going to show you how you can encourage hedgehogs into your garden, but they may already be there. So, how will you know if these hedgehogs have already discovered your garden? Well, for a start, look out for their poo. Here's some. It's quite solid and looks a lot like a dark slug. Next, you might see a mound of leaves and twigs, a bit like this one. Be careful not to disturb it in case a hedgehog is sleeping in there. We've often been out in the garden and heard their little sleepy noises coming from this mound. Hedgehogs are an important indicator for how well nature generally is doing, because they snuffle through the ground, feeding on things like beetles, caterpillars and insects. So, the fact they are in such decline is a real concern. The good news, however, is that there are lots of things you can do to encourage hedgehogs into your garden. First of all, let a part of your garden go wild. You can see how we've done that here. There are brambles, nettles and some quite dense hedgerows. This all provides really good cover. Of course, the hedgehog has to find your garden, so make sure there is at least one hole in your garden fence. A gap of about 13 centimetres is recommended. This will help the hedgehogs travel through gardens. They can walk over a mile at night. Next, be sure, especially at this warmer time of year, to leave out a few shallow dishes of fresh water every day. water is really important to help the hoggies stay hydrated. Now you can create a feeding station. This one was made from an old plastic crate we had lying around. We cut a 13cm hole in one slide and taped it up so there were no sharp edges and the little hoggies can come in and out like so. And also remember to replace the food and the newspaper that's in here every day. So you can see in this one we have night vision cameras at the back which captures any feeding station action. You also need to make sure once you've obviously closed the feeding station up, you need to make sure that you can put something like a bit of weight, like a brick, on top. That can stop larger wildlife getting in and also stop it blowing around in the weather as well. We also put water out for the hedgehogs. We're doing this just outside the feeding station is recommended, so obviously they don't obviously make a bit of a mess in the feeding station or spill over the newspaper, and also so they can, because it's one of the most crucial parts of their diet, to be able to have enough drink and water. Having a feeding station is probably better than just putting food out for them in the open, as the slugs and snails can get to it. And despite what is commonly thought, slugs are very low down in the list of food for hedgehogs and can make them ill. I asked Grace Johnson from Hedgehog Street what advice she would give to someone who wants to encourage hedgehogs into their garden.
A really good place to look to start with is the big hedgehog map, which is part of Hedgehog Street. And basically what that is just we ask people to just log sightings of hedgehogs. You know, that's been running, I think, since 2015. So we've got, you know, tens of thousands of records on there. And it just gives you a really good picture of if there are hedgehogs in your local area. So it's quite a good place to start. In terms of actually encouraging them in, one thing that's really, really important is making sure that they can actually get into the garden. So if you've got solid, you know, walls or fences all the way around, you know, you can make your garden as hedgehog friendly as you want, but if they can't get in, then it's, you know, it doesn't do much good. So what we encourage people to do is install what we call hedgehog highways, which is just small gaps in the fences or boundaries of the garden. So what you said before, 13 centimetres up and across is perfect. Another really good idea is what you've done, which is just to leave an area of the garden just completely undisturbed, just let it grow a little bit wild, like you said. And just having that really sort of just wild area, basically it provides shelter, but also food for hedgehogs, because you want to try and increase the amount of creepy crawlies. As you were saying, to put out a feeding station, that's a fantastic idea. So we recommend just something like meaty cat or dog food and a shallow dish of water, and that's going to be, you know, potentially a lifeline for a local hedgehog. And really just heading on to hedgehogstreet.org, that's our website. There's loads of different tips and ideas on there for how to encourage hedgehogs and how to sort of attract them to the garden.
Just to finish looking around my garden then, you can see here I have built a small log pile. Now this will become a great source of food for the hedgehogs as they snuffle around looking for their beetles and insects. In the last week, I've also put in a very small pond. It's too soon to really see the benefit of it, but over time it'll attract more insects and give the hedgehogs a little bathing space. Just remember that although they are good swimmers, they will need help getting out, so make sure there's a slope of some kind to help them. Finally, if you wanted, you can make an extra home for them, like the one we have here. There's no guarantee they'll use it, but a little extra room is always good to offer. If you're really interested in learning more about hedgehogs, there is lots more information at hedgehogstreet.org, including their brilliant Hedgehogs After Dark campaign. So, there you have it, an introduction to the habitat and habits of a hedgehog. I hope you have been inspired to go and look in your garden and encourage these beautiful creatures to visit. Now, do remember to be patient, because there is no guarantee a hedgehog will come, and of course in winter they should be hibernating. But at the very least, you are helping nature survive.